Hello, Danvers. My name is Jasmine Ramon, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the town. A few weeks ago, we wrapped up our summer series, Let's Talk About Race, where the community came together to discuss different topics about race, oppression, microaggressions, intersectionality, you name it. So what do you do after a series like that? Well, I say, let's talk about race some more. So I'm joined today with Maria Joseph, Christy Farrer, and Isaiah Young, participants who attended the different sessions throughout the series. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into reflecting on how the series went, and just thinking more about some of the topics that came up and how it was to engage with our community members. So for the first question I have for you all is, in thinking about what this series set out to do, I'm curious what, if any, expectations you might have had going into a series like this.
I mean, the first thing that I thought was actually that we were going to have a very, very small group. That first day when I walked in, I thought it was going to be maybe just the four of us, or a couple other people. And that first week, I think we had almost 20 people, and I was blown away by the response, and it was really fantastic.
I went into it thinking it was going to be more kind of a team approach, like it would be us against the institutions in Danvers that are practicing racism. And of course, when you have that, you're not really bringing out unity, and you're not coming together as a community. So I was really very happy just with the self-reflection that we all were able to do, and then bring it and do it within the community.
I love that. When you say that, I'm like, man, if there were teams, does that make me the referee of that? Representing the town, but still trying to disrupt some of that.
Yes, it wasn't, my expectation would not have gone well if that's the way it was set up.
What about you, Isaiah?
I also really expected it to be a small group. I did not expect that many people to turn out, and I think that sort of speaks to that there are people in Danvers that want to try, and and it's more than just the 5 or 10 people you see at every meeting or like committee, so on and so forth. So I thought that was kind of cool.
For sure.
Gave me some hope.
Yes,
Definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We just talked about it. So I'm also curious, again, because each week featured a different topic, wide range of variety, like a variety of, oh my goodness, I can't even talk. Each week offered up a variety of questions floating around the same kind of topic. And I'm curious if there was a particular week or conversation that you felt was the most challenging or perhaps the most intriguing that's kind of stayed with you since then.
I mean, for me, the two that really struck me were intersectionality and I just got called racist. So what do I do next? For me, intersectionality has opened up a whole new side of DEI and understanding discrimination and oppression and the system, and that's really, really cool. A whole new lens to look at. And then I just got called racist, what do I do next? It was a really tough conversation. Going into that, I knew it was gonna be a tough conversation, and so yeah, it was a little tough, but we got through it. It went sort of well. Came to a few conclusions. Yeah.
The week that stood out the most to me was the week about cultural appropriation, and mostly because I thought it was very clear, what is cultural appropriation, how to avoid it, and my group's conversation showed me that it's not very clear to a lot of people, and that there are so many gray areas of that. And we came up with a couple of scenarios and talked through them. It's would this be cultural appropriation? Would this not be? And we didn't always agree. And so I think that is a great way for us to know that these topics are not cut and dry. They are not black and white, and not pun not intended there. But there's a lot of nuance in how we see the world and what we do, but that we really need to think about everybody else, have empathy, and try to be critical of our own actions, and take responsibility for them.
I'll tag along with that. My most challenging evening was on microaggressions, and I it was an education for me. I think I understand what a macroaggression would be. I did not understand it all. It was completely new and foreign to me. So that was really very, it impacted me, but it was a few weeks into the series, and I realized that I had actually had a microaggression against someone in the series a few weeks prior that I had to own as we discussed it. Like, it became evident to me, okay, I had perpetrated that. And I think it was very challenging because obviously I'm there. That's not my intent, but just to see if I trust my natural instinct of how to respond in some situations, I might not fully understand, and I might be committing a microaggression.
I appreciate you being vulnerable about that. I feel like we were learning that we need to unlearn, and that there are ways of being and understanding that we've just been socialized to understand. And to your point, what do you do when your gut is the thing that needs to be rewired?
Right, exactly, exactly.
That's tough. I think for me, it wasn't so much one week or topic in particular, but there were moments where I could feel my reactions in my body, and even recognizing that as a woman of color, I've been socialized to understand how to navigate white spaces, but that doesn't mean I truly will ever understand the experience of being a white person and not being exposed to difference, and just thinking about not being able to relate to the experience of thinking just because we're talking about difference that's divisive. I would have never even come to that conclusion. So learning where that comes from was a really good opportunity for me, or even understanding the experience of, some folks were saying this person that I love or this best friend of mine is problematic, says harmful things, but I'm afraid to ruin that friendship. Even for me, in my head, I'm like, that's really hard, because for me, it wouldn't be a question. But I don't have those same kinds of relationships where I'd have to think about that. So it was even a learning opportunity for me as well. I was like, I don't know what I would do in that situation if I felt like I had to fight for that relationship and wanting to see the bigger picture and move us forward as society. I learned a lot from my groups as well. I guess, so to that point, I think that's a good segue, because that was maybe a revelation that I had. I'd be curious if there was any revelations that you had throughout the series, or something that you might have learned about yourself or the community and the people around you throughout this process.
I think for me, I learned just that I need to give a lot of thought to my actions, and realize that the way I was brought up, the way I was socialized, my intention might be one thing, but the way I come across might be another thing, and I need to own that and be able to look at that and see it. And I think as a community, I realized how much we need each other, to challenge each other, and to be challenged, and to have a community where it's, I felt like the series was a very safe community to either challenge someone or to be challenged, and to peel back layers and really look at myself.
I think there were a couple things. One is that there's always room for more learning and more conversations, that it's not, I've done a bunch of trainings, but it's not done. Like, I'm not, oh, great, I'm anti-racist now, everything's done, I'm good. No, there's something to learn in every conversation. There's always growth. And then I also, going back to Isaiah's talking about hope in the community, I loved realizing that there were so many faces that I didn't know, so many people I didn't know, which means that when I walk around the community, there are tons of people who want to have these types of conversations, who are hoping to learn and grow. And that is a really hopeful feeling, instead of kind of having, that response to the last few years where I would walk around and be like, well, are they racist? Are they going to say, or are they, homophobic and say something about somebody in my family? And I like the hopeful version, and I want to embrace that.
For me, it was actually the difference in racism between my generation and yours. because it's very different, and like the way that things happen are a lot more different. And I feel like that was a big revelation. Another huge revelation was that I like agree. There are people who I didn't know, who like I've never seen before in my life. Most of the people I had not known, which was really surprising to me. I was like, all of these people are here to like actually learn and get better, or attempting to, and that's hopeful.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're sharing here with that. When I think about the different incidents in the Danvers community related to race and oppression that really motivated the community to want my role, right? The reasons why I am here. Even just seeing the shift in like the year and a half that I've been here. The community, the Danvers that is in the Boston Globe is not the Danvers that we are living in and walking through every day now. And it's been interesting to see even my own perceptions shift from what I was learning about the community to now being more embedded in the community. And I'm curious, because you all live here, am I onto something? Are you seeing that as well?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I have to admit that I actually wasn't super involved and invested in the community prior to like 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, my kids were in school and I was involved in the school community, but it was some of the incidents that were happening in town that got me really involved. And I think that while we were seeing this undercurrent of hatred and of racism that has existed for a long time, being kind of peeled back and with a microscope on it, I actually also love that I've seen this growth of people getting involved too, that inspired people to run for office, to sit on boards, to come to events like this. And I think that really is the day-to-day Danvers, more so than the small, I think it is a minority of people who are just very loud, and that the rest of us need to speak up and to continue to do work in this community, because I really think that we are the majority in this town.
I mean, from the school perspective, I saw like a huge movement of change. As soon as the articles came out, it was like everything in Danvers High like changed quickly. A lot of students like really got active. Like I'm one of them. Before these articles, I didn't do anything. I was at home all day playing video games. Like I didn't do anything, not about the community. I was like, I read those articles. I was like, I can do something about this, and got involved. And not just me, like tens and like lots of other kids did it too. And I think that was really like powerful to see. There's like people are really, really trying. And over the past year, I have seen progress in Danvers High School. I mean, I wish there was more progress, but there's still progress, and I'm hopeful for the momentum right now, because I feel like things are going in the right direction, and I hope they continue to go in the right direction.
Yeah, I feel the same as you, that there has been a change. There seems to be a shift. I was really pleasantly surprised. Like you probably have a better idea than me, but it seems like there could have been, over the course of the whole time that we did the series, even up to 100 people on different nights that came, and people were at different points. Some people were very active, and that was their occupation. Some people, this was literally the first step in their personal work on racism, and so it was very encouraging to see there's people on all different stages coming out to come together and to help our community to grow and to be unified. And just because of my family, I feel like in the past it used to be if it affected you personally, you would get involved, and now I feel like people are saying, no, this affects my community. Even if it doesn't affect me personally or my family personally, I need to be involved to see the growth.
Yeah, and I'm hearing what you're all saying, and I hope that you're feeling that pride as Danvers residents that this change is happening. I think the Puerto Ricans like to say pa'lante, like sigue pa'lante, so I'm like, don't stop, keep going, right? Let's not get complacent, and that's really exciting. Are there any other thoughts or takeaways about the series that you would want to share or just kind of reflect on while we have this time together?
I was thinking about something you said. So last night was the Accessibility Commission meeting, and you were giving a recap for us, as you do in our meetings, and you said that seeing the conversation series about race meant that we know that our community is prime and ready for more conversations. And so I really am excited about the prospect of doing this on other topics, to really looking at our town from an accessibility lens, and hearing what people have to say about their different identities.
A final takeaway for me was that, like, the recap, I mean, the series, I feel, brought together people who were all trying to improve and sort of created, not only like gave others hope, because I feel oftentimes people who try to create change in society lose hope because there's so much bad stuff that goes on. And so not only did this series give hope, but I think it created a unified front and like really allowed people to use their voice and speak up. That people, most of the time, I think in Danvers, we are the majority, but people don't speak up enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this series gave the opportunity people to speak up, and not just speak up, but like speak at all.
Mm-hmm.
And learning how to speak up and speak is really important because we can create change that way.
I think one takeaway from this is just, and I don't know how this is going to come across or sound, but dealing with the shame. There's a shame that this is my community, and there's a shame that, okay, I'm seeing things in myself that are shameful and that I don't want. And to be able to have this conversation and continue this conversation and deal with that pain, whether it be on a community level or a personal level, but realize that seeing the truth isn't necessarily bad. It's good to see the truth, and then we can really look at it, and then we can move forward and examine it and make decisions to change. So I feel like the takeaway is that the pain, it's going to come with pain, and that's okay. We can deal with that instead of trying to put on rose-colored glasses and pretend that, oh, we had this series and everything is fine now,
Right.
or nothing is in the news,
Yeah.
so we're fine now. But to really be able to deal with that inner uncomfortability.
That really resonates with me because I am a strong believer in that when you love something, you want to make it better. And that is true for loving yourself. That is true for loving your country. That is true for all kinds of things. And so when you say that, that's what's resonating with me, is that there is a clear love in the community for Danvers.
Mm-hmm.
And with that is responsibility to make it better, to do that together. So I love that you've brought that point back around. My last question for you all, I kind of want to end where we began. So we began this series with the question, why is it important to talk about race? And I'm curious what you think of that now, having gone through the series.
Go ahead.
My views have slightly shifted, but they're still overall the same. I think it's important to talk about race because it's important to acknowledge that there's a system in place that like negatively affects different groups. And so that's overall been like why I think it's important to talk about race. But where I've shifted is like, it's important to talk about race because I for one, when I went into this, I didn't know, like I understood that people weren't entirely educated, or not like uneducated, but didn't understand everything. And so, but when I went through the series, I learned that a lot more people, like these are conversations they have normally and they don't really know how to have them, or like what even, like for example, you didn't know what a microaggression was, but you're still trying to improve yourself. And so like stuff like that, for me, really shifted because I think that's why it's important to talk about race, so that people can learn how to talk about it and people can learn to like acknowledge all the different systems, the different ways people are oppressed, all the different things that you could do, like microaggressions, like not you could, oh wait, that sounds bad.
You're fine.
But yeah, I think that's why it's really important to talk about race. Not only because there's that systemic aspect of it, because there's that self-improvement aspect of it and that educational aspect of it. And that's the way that we can progressively create change. Because it's very hard for one person to do something. But if you have an entire community of people dedicated to trying to better themselves and better their community, then you can really, really create change.
There's this feeling in our country that if we don't talk about something, it'll go away. And we know that that's not true. And so if we really want racism to dissipate, if we want our communities to get better and stronger, we have to name it. We have to talk about it. And it's come up a couple of times, and I know, Jasmine, you talked about this in the series itself, but you have to practice.
Yes.
It's not, we're not born being, able to speak really well, right? As babies, we learn language, we learn how to say words and to string together sentences. And the same thing is true for talking about race and racism. And so, we need to keep having these conversations, and everybody who came needs to have conversations with their friends and their family, and to take it outside of the library and actually have practice those conversations.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's so important to practice and not just pretend that it doesn't exist. And also, my experience is very different than a person of color's experience. And so if we don't talk, we never understand each other. And there's so much that I would need to grow in, but I wouldn't be growing in because I don't really have the understanding. I can't listen to their story and understand. So I think it's just really important to really understand each other.
These are some great responses. And as you were sharing, I also was just thinking, it can be fun. I think I had fun, and I know that sounds maybe silly for the audience, but when I think about, it's not just that it's important for all the amazing reasons that you've articulated, but I think it's just fun to hear about a perspective or experience that you wouldn't have otherwise encountered. It's fun to learn about different cultures or to understand the reality that we could be looking at the same exact object and see two different things. I think there's an inherent beauty in that, and recognizing that human connection is necessary to further our society regardless. Like, it could be race, it could be gender, and so on. But I'm really hoping that this community continues to engage with the fun aspects of it, which is the culture sharing, which is the storytelling, and that piece of it. So again, I'm super grateful to each of you for your participation. I mean, Maria, I didn't even know you before this, and now I fangirl you. But so just, and seeing the people that I already knew and respected, and now connecting more people I know and respect, it's just beautiful. I'm like, all the great people I know each other. This is a good day. So thank you all for taking the time to really share more of that with our community. And I do just want to shout out the library for giving us the space to make it happen. I'm extremely grateful for all the participants who attended, for the people who couldn't attend but reached out and said they wish they could, to those of you who even sent thank you cards or notes, or who said, I love the DCAT recaps. Thank you, DCAT, for the recaps. I really appreciate all of that support and that persistent dedication and demonstration of appetite for the conversation. So while this is the final conversation of the series, this isn't the final conversation. So I encourage the community to look out for more opportunities coming this fall to engage in conversation around race and oppression. And again, just thank you so much, Danvers. There's a lot to be proud of, and I am excited to do the work that lies ahead.